Hello, thank you for joining us here on the Life Sciences Knowledge Hub. My name's David. This is your one-stop shop for industry insights and analysis. Joining us now is Jason Mellad of Start Codon. Jason, all the way from sunny Cambridge, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Tell us a little bit about Start Codon, please.
Happy to. So Start Codon is a new venture builder accelerator based in Cambridge here in the UK, but with a global vision. We feel that Cambridge is one of the leading biotech hubs in the world. And one of the things that is challenging for early stage companies is to be able to access all the resources that we have here in our ecosystem. So Start Codon was founded by myself and Dan Rook, my co-founder and our partners, to be able to back young therapeutics, diagnostics, digital health, and med tech companies to help them get started, license their IP, build their teams, and leverage all the amazing resources we have here in Cambridge. Importantly, even though we're located physically here in Cambridge, we're open to companies from across the globe.
Indeed, and there is such a scene, such a vibe in Cambridge at the moment, as there has been for a while. So you're right. While I'm sure your reach is global, there's certainly a thriving heart there in Cambridge. And just coming onto that theme of having a base but being global, that's something that we've all found during the pandemic, in as much as we are based anywhere and everywhere at the moment, yet we're still able to contribute to a central hub. What would you say has been the impact of the pandemic on life sciences, particularly on the investment scene, and how's that affected your operations at Start Codon?
Well, it's really fascinating that you say that because when we started Start Codon, we felt that we would be a physical location, lab and office space. Companies would come stay with us for 6 months at a time, and then they would move on and we'd bring in the next cohort. We literally got started 2 weeks before lockdown in March of last year. So we went from having our party of being in our brand new office and lab space to having to pack up shop and being home and virtual ever since. Now, although that presented some challenges early on, we quite quickly learned that it actually expanded our horizons because it meant it didn't matter if you were down the street from us or if you were across the country or maybe even in another country. As long as we could coordinate Teams and Zoom schedules, we could provide you with the same level of support and guidance. So that really expanded our deal flow and deal sourcing capabilities. I think the same thing is happening with investors across the landscape. I am always being contacted by American, European, and Asian VCs who want to invest in companies that are going to stay and grow in the UK. Historically, you were only really able to access most of those investors if you decided to flip your company and set up shop nearby. There used to be an old adage that investors invest in people in their own neighborhood. They don't want to have to drive more than an hour to get to a board meeting. Now, you might as well be in Antarctica for the likes of investors. You can invest in back companies anywhere. We've eliminated a lot of these old adages and, let's say, assumptions around how we can do business. And that's really opened up the investment landscape to everyone.
Yeah, and I think that manifests itself in a number of ways. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, it means that you're right. We are no longer limited by geography, and if you want to work in that sector, let alone invest in it, you don't need to be based, whether it's in or around Cambridge or if it's in tech in or around Silicon Valley. It opens up the workforce and it creates new opportunities and new ways of thinking and hopefully new solutions into these various markets as well. Let's take a quick look back if we can. Would you say that life sciences is as attractive to investors now as it was going way back, early 90s or so? And which other sectors do you think it's mainly having to compete with for attention from investors right now?
I think life sciences is even more attractive now than it's ever been, particularly because we're so much more aware of not only the importance of things like early detection, telemedicine, digital health, but also how fragile our lives are. That's one thing that the pandemic has really brought into sharp focus, is that people say all the time that life is short, but we now know it truly is. And so multiple investors who even haven't traditionally been interested in life sciences, I think of some of the big tech investors, et cetera, are increasingly wanting to invest in life science companies. So if anything, now's the best time, I'd say, in history to set up a new startup focused on a life science issue. Importantly, even in startup funders like myself, we say that we're interested in therapeutics, diagnostics, etc., but we're finding that there's interdisciplinary learnings that we can have from other industries. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning. These are all tools that are being used across multiple sectors, including life sciences, so that investors who traditionally have invested in one field know that they can cross over into another. We've even seen that recently there was a bumper crop of deals, of, I think over £11 billion worth of deals in Q1 of 2021 alone in the UK life science sector. That is phenomenal, and I think it's only going to increase. So fundamentally, in the past, it was maybe about big pharma. I think going forward, it's all about startups and SMEs. And this is the perfect time and environment for traditional as well as new investors to get into the life sciences.
Sure, and you mentioned the impact that technologies like artificial intelligence, could have on the sector. Cambridge again is a terrific hotbed of innovation in that sector. So, as much as we're talking about globalization and not necessarily needing to be based in one place, actually once we do start to return to something that looks like a new normal, maybe those influences, maybe that cross-pollination will occur and we can start to benefit from things that are perhaps more than the sum of their parts.
Definitely, and I think, just speaking to your point about diversity and inclusion, I've said multiple times in several discussions I've been having recently, I think of all the innovations that we are going to have in the history of mankind, and even near term when it comes to life sciences like CRISPR for gene editing, or indeed AI and some of the other advances we've had in genomics. Fundamentally, diversity and inclusion will prove to be the most disruptive innovation that any sector has ever experienced. Not only in terms of opening up new markets, but bringing new ideas to the forefront. We need to have more diversity and inclusion on all facets of industry, whether it comes down to workers, the management teams, executives, board members, as well as investors. And I find that increasingly, we are now understanding that it is not just morally the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing commercially to do as well. Multiple studies from the likes of McKinsey et al. Have shown that more diverse workforces, more diverse investors make smarter decisions and thrive. So it'll be really interesting to see how, as we start to open up the doors to new innovative thinking and potentially even reverse innovation from some of the developing economies, how that's going to really impact us all going forward.
And before we wrap up, what else do you see as the future of the sector? What are the next prospects for investment? Where we've kind of covered the present, we've covered the past. What about the future? What are your particular hopes?
I think everything will be big data. For all the companies that we look at, it doesn't matter if they're a traditional antibodies, say, therapeutics company, or if they're going into more esoteric fields. They all have an informatics play. And I feel that the lines between different siloed industries are blurring to the point where we'll all merge together in terms of physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, computer sciences. We are starting to see those barriers come down. And as you said, that cross-pollination of ideas is going to be fantastic. I think there's still a lot more to be discovered in our own genomes. I'm fascinated by the amount of information we can unlock. I also think that there are new advances that are being made in materials for, let's say, smaller, miniaturized medical devices that can be implanted and help us address historically intractable issues. And things like stem cells, genome editing, etc., we've got the baseline now, but there's so much more to play for. Even with CRISPR, it's revolutionized gene editing, but there are more editors out there in the biome that we haven't explored. There are more secrets to be discovered. And I think as we develop tools to be able to do more mining of some of these microbial ecosystems as well, we'll be able to then uncover new applications in life sciences that we haven't before. So there was a lot of different things that I highlighted, but I think the future's bright.
Yeah, exciting times. Listen, Jason, thank you so much for chatting us through that fascinating conversation, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.